So welcome to episode 2. I don't even know how to do these entrances. I don't know how to do these, I have no idea how this podcast is going to work. I did one about a week ago. You obviously came in. And I was with Joe at the time. Now we got you. I wouldn't even call you being on the pod because we're doing this kind of together, at least while we're here. So yeah, I guess this is going to be the entrance of podcast number 2. I guess we're just going to go down rabbit holes and kind of gauge where... whoever's listening is going to have no idea what we're talking about until we kind of make sense of it.
Let's do it. Let's crack a beer open. And,
also, too, where did you get these beers?
Huh?
Where did you get these beers?
I got them at Cascade by the Lambert Parkway.
Cheers.
Santé.
I don't know if you guys can see on camera. This thing is sick.
I got a peachy one.
I've never drank these before. They're kind of sick looking.
Cool.
Wow.
It's probably going to be super sweet.
This one's blackberry and sour ale.
I got one. It's called Stone Fruit Sour. I think it's going to be peachy.
Peachy?
Kind of cool dinosaur on the design.
Alright, cheers. That's actually not bad.
That's good.
Yeah, I'll try yours.
Yeah, it's good.
I'm gonna put my gum in though.
Peachy.
I'm gonna throw my gum out.
You gotta leave your mouth in the beer.
They're both good. They're both good.
That one is a bit more mellow, but this one is super sweet.
I like mine more because I took it, but they're both good. Okay.
There's a lot more.
So, I guess let's get into it. How I started off the other podcast with Joe was, how did we meet? How do we even know each other? So from your perspective,
Yeah.
I know we've already talked about this.
Oh, that's fine.
But from your
It's for
perspective...
the listeners.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
for our moms at home.
It's for the moms, the 2 moms that are going to be watching. So how did we meet? What is your background on our situation?
All right. Well, I mean, you might have talked about it in your other podcast. I don't know, but you used to be in the Navy, right? And I've been in the Navy about 9 years. So let's say about 6 years ago, I was on the East Coast in Halifax. And I think we still together on the Ville de Quebec or the Montreal. No, Ville de Quebec.
VDQ, yeah.
Yeah. And then we just met very lightly. We didn't really know much about each other. We just knew that we both spoke French.
Yeah, because we never actually introduced each other. It was more just we walked by each other, and I remember seeing your face.
And I remember being at the airport flying back to Montreal at some point from like either Christmas leave or something similar to that. And I remember waiting at the airport with you at the departure. You might not remember that.
Was that the first Christmas in like 2017?
Yeah.
So that would have been after like the New York trip.
Yeah, and I just remembered you because your name was Keanu, and I was like, I've never met someone named Keanu except the big actor. I don't know. You guys might know him.
No one knows Keanu Reeves. No one.
Yeah, and then a few years back, I guess, you sent me a picture online. You must have been in a bar. You thought it was my cousin, one of my cousins or something like that.
Montreal situation, yeah.
Something like that, anyway. And then recently, after I finished school, I was offered a contract on the West Coast, again with the Navy. And I made a story on Instagram, and it was asking people around what was a good neighborhood to live in Victoria. And you're the first one that reached out. You're like, hey, I'm looking for a roommate. I'm moving out. Let's call each other and let's link up and see if we hit it off. And hey, man, it's been almost 2 years now.
2 years rolling.
It's crazy, huh? It's good.
Time flies. So I guess from my perspective, I remember obviously we met each other through the Navy, which would have been somewhere around that late 2016, early 2017.
Yeah, early
somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And we were both posted, like you mentioned, on the VDQ, which is the Ville de Quebec, one of the HMCS frigates that I was going to say U.S. that the Canadian military has, for those who have absolutely no idea what we're talking about. But yeah, so we were posted on the same ship, and there was never no formal like introduction to each other. There was no like, hey, my name's Keanu, Alex, how you doing? But there was just nothing. And I just remember coming onto the main flats, which is like the main deck, I guess, which is the one below above ship.
Mm-hmm.
Not well explained, but
like
I just remember
floor, I guess.
yeah, going towards like where the galley is with the food.
Yeah.
And then I remember just seeing you there hanging out, and it was like cleaning stations or just hanging around. Like, so that's kind of where I remember picturing you for the first time, something like that. And at that time of our life, which would have been like 6 years ago, give or take, you don't ever think about possibly moving in with that person later on.
No, not at all.
No, you just not even
I never
regardless
thought
of
I
moving.
would be on the West Coast at that point.
Yeah.
I never. Oh.
It's just people you're running into throughout your life. You don't think of nothing of them. You just see a face and you move on. That's literally it. And I remember, I don't know if it was because I went out to Montreal with your cousin. Well, I met your cousin somehow
Randomly
in Montreal.
in a bar or something,
I don't
yeah.
know if it was through that I knew you guys were from Quebec, or if it was just maybe.
We also had mutual friends like Pintal Godin or something like that. There was another French guy I used to talk to on the ship, and I think you were hanging out with at that point. No.
That's possible.
Or
It was. It probably was like at some point we just had a very quick conversation. I heard you talking, and I knew you're from Quebec.
it's so funny because we never linked up outside of a ship. We just
No.
I remember you at the airport. You might not remember that.
I have a little bit of a. I remember it a little bit. And I think, so you're talking in Halifax or
I
Montreal.
think it was flying from Halifax to Montreal.
Okay. Well, I think I remember.
That,
But I feel like I was walking up and then you were either standing or sitting at a seat in the
I feel
corner.
like you were wearing like a hockey jersey or something like that.
Was it red and gray?
Yeah, something
Yes,
like that.
it's.
That's
Dude, I know, that was my old hockey sweater. It was a Gong Show sweater.
Something
Literally
like
the
that.
same brand as this. That's hilarious. It was literally had gray sleeves and it was red throughout the middle.
I just
was
remember the red and
Yeah.
like being a hockey shirt. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. So, yeah, I guess we ran into each other at the airport, and then I guess I left the Navy and had moved out here in mid 2019, and you were still in Halifax.
Mid 2019, at that point, I was back in Montreal. I think I was still working for the Navy part time, and then I was actually full time for the Navy, but back in Montreal until 2020 hit. So COVID, 2021, it was still like on and off with the Navy, and then 2021 is when I went to school, and I actually we'll talk about more about that later. But I went into aviation and I did my commercial license for helicopters.
2020.
2021, yeah.
2021?
Yeah.
So right when COVID was kind of at its peak.
Well, kind of like when it's dimming. Might have been 2022 then.
Because in 2020 it hit in the spring.
So I started my license in March 2021. So we still had like COVID
It's about a year
restrictions.
in.
Yeah, we still had COVID restrictions. So a lot of it was like a lot of school I've done was at home on the computer, and that kind of sucked. Like it's hard to study from through a screen. But then a bit of the flying was done with masks on and everything, and like you had to disinfect the machines all day long. It was a hassle, but I made it.
Yeah, so 2021.
Yeah, 2021. Then 2022 is when I finished my license, and then I took a contract out west. And
So were you thinking on coming out here before that, or did everything just happen last
it's
minute?
kind of interesting because I've always had somewhat of a calling for the West Coast. I've always been interested. Early in my Navy career, I wanted to be out west.
Yeah, because you were here, right?
Well, not really actually. I've only been there for like long weekends, like Thanksgiving or something like that.
Because you're on contract reserves
Yeah,
and you had training out here.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And I always wanted to be out here, but over the years, the shacks or like the living quarters in Halifax got way better than what it used to be. So it was easier for me to just be like, I want to be somewhere kind of comfier, and I know the job, so I'll stay in Halifax a while. So I deployed a couple times from the East Coast. Still wanted to move out west, but didn't like really make it happen. And then so much flying opportunities are on the West Coast, in Northern Quebec, Northern Ontario.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to get out of Quebec, just to get out of my comfort zone a bit.
Yeah.
And I got a contract opportunity out here, and I was like, yeah, I'll take it. Let's give it a shot. It's a free move out west. The military pays for it. And yeah.
So your whole time up until 2021, you were out in Halifax.
No, so like from late 2018, so let's say 2019 to 2021, I was in Montreal.
Okay, so the last 2 years before you came here.
Yeah, Montreal.
Yeah, because when you contacted me, well, kind of when we started speaking, you were in Montreal at that time. Okay. So you were in Montreal. This opportunity kind of came up last minute.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay. How did that just come up? Did someone just talk to you like, hey, there's a spot opening, or?
You know, Navy is a big thing, and I've known a guy. There's one of my good friends I've known for 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
Did a bunch of courses and stuff together, and he reached out and he said, "Hey, there's an opening that's arriving at that unit that I'm at right now, and give it a shot." And I actually hesitated a few times because I was like, I don't know. I've kind of done the Navy thing a while, and
Yeah.
I just want to do something else and start flying more. But I racked up a little bit of student debts, and I was like, at least a contract out west will guarantee me good money. So I decided to take the contract, got a free move out west, moved the cats with me. So I got 2 cats.
Yeah, this cat's gonna love the pod.
Yeah.
Look at this. I
There you
guarantee
go.
you she's about to
Settling in.
park. She's about to park.
Park it.
Okay, so that's when we came in contact 2021 about you moving out this way, which honestly couldn't have been more perfect
It
timing.
was a good timing, yeah.
Because I had re-left for the military, for the Air Force in 2020. Yeah, September of 2020. So actually, last week would have been exactly 3 years I'm in back.
Yeah.
Like back in. Yes, exactly. So it's been 3 years I'm literally officially signed in. So that would give me close to 7 years now. Anyways, saying that, soon as I found out I was coming out this way, actually it was after I had arrived we started speaking. So yes, 2021 February, I moved out this way. It was actually March to be specific. I moved out here in March, and then that's when you had put up a post on Instagram,
Yeah.
kind of just being like, I'm moving out. I'm thinking about going out west. What are the chances? And at that time, when I moved here, I was also temporarily living with my buddy, one of my closest friends as well. I was living at his place, and I couldn't really stay too long. It was kind of looking, there was no specific timeline I had to get out by, but June, July was kind of the time frame. So I just remember seeing your post, and I'm just kind of in this funk of being like, how am I going to go out on my own? I could have did it, of course. But anyway, as soon as I saw your post of reaching out.
You're the first one. You're the first one that reached out. The only other reactions I had was like, "Oh my God, you want to go? You're moving out west."
Yeah.
Like no one else was like, either giving me an advice or you're the first one that's like, "Hey, let's call each other and see if we like each other and like fucking want to move together."
I don't remember like so much of what we talked about, but I know we hit it off immediately because
Talk about interests like hikes, camping, and kind of sports, and just like being driven and
the lifestyle that we both did, we're both
Yeah,
outgoing,
exactly.
social, like you just said, hikes. I know friends out here. You knew some friends.
Yeah, exactly. I knew people, so I already had a little bit of a circle to go to.
Mm-hmm.
And then my most important thing was I needed a place where the cats could be with me because I was not moving without them.
Yeah.
And you were already out here, so it was easy. You visited like maybe 1 or 2 apartments until we found this one, and this one just seemed pretty good enough for price, location, cats.
The other thing that was a major benefit to the both of us, at least from my perspective, was the aviation.
Yeah.
Like soon as I didn't realize, I don't even remember if I knew. Yeah, I must have known
Yeah,
you were about to finish your commercials.
It was all on my Instagram and
Yeah,
stuff
exactly.
like that.
So I would have definitely known, but I remember us talking about it on how we're possibly going to be flying together and studying, and I'm not a pilot technically yet, but I was like 2 pilots living together, traveling. Like it seems like a perfect world, right? So that's kind of where I was like, the timing is right. We're both from the same province, which is another thing. Like we both speak French. I mean, your mother tongue is French. Wah, wah. Start going in French. But anyway, it just seemed that
Log on to the next episode. It's going to be a full French one.
full French. The Quebecers are going to cringe. All the English people are going to turn it off.
My English is already cringy right now.
Exactly. So yeah, I guess that's kind of the background of you and I. And then of course, once you moved out here, I think in August.
Yeah, something like that.
No, July.
Maybe even like mid-May, kind of late May.
May. I don't remember the day, but I know.
I should know better.
I remember
moved
the
out here,
situation, but I don't remember the day.
It's all right.
So yeah, you moved out here, and now it's been about a year and a half we've been together.
Yeah.
Well, we've been living together. Yeah. And I guess the rest is history. So.
Yeah. What's the history? What have we done in the past year and a half? I mean, you tried to show me a little bit of arm wrestling. We didn't really film that one. We went on a couple hikes, went camping a few times. Only recently did we start planning flights together, just because.
Yeah, we did that Mount Kusam hike last year.
Yeah,
for our buddy Tom.
Yeah, that was tough.
And for those who don't know, I don't even know if I'm saying it properly, Mount Kusam or Kusam?
I think it was like Klosam or something like that. But
Mount Kusam. Anyways, you put it in on Google, you'll find it. But Mount Kusam, Vancouver Island.
Yeah, north of Campbell River.
Yeah, it was like a 4.5 or 5 hour trip from Victoria. If you go northeast, kind of.
Yeah.
Well, pretty much north. northwest technically, but it was about a 5-hour trip up by car, and then it's one of the highest peaks on the island at 1,500
Yeah, it
meters.
was 1,500, that's for sure. Yeah, we climbed at least 800 to 900 that one.
And when we got to the peak, that was the highest summit I've ever done.
Yeah,
and
it was
that
super cool.
I remember just getting to the top and overlooking essentially the island.
Remember what I did at the top?
You made coffee.
I made coffee, and everyone was like, "Who goes at the top of a summit to make coffee?"
Yeah, I remember you're like, "Do you want some?" And I'm like, "I'm cool with that."
Yeah, I shared it
Just
with
send
everyone.
it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we did that. That was the biggest hike by far that I've ever done. But we've done that. We partied a bunch. I feel like everyone who comes here at some point, you'll definitely party it up. But I guess the next chapter for us will be flying.
Yeah, man, super stoked.
That's a whole different can of
Super
worms.
stoked.
Mm-hmm.
So excited. Lots of planning to do, lots of destination, and like just like looking at where we want to go, and eventually we'll be up in the air. We'll spot some lakes and everything. We'll be like, hey, let's land there.
So, for those who are currently watching, I'm in the midst of doing my PPL, which is a private pilot's license. It just allows you to fly Cessnas, so 4-seater planes. And that allows me to fly anywhere I want, essentially in the world, technically in the world. Okay, let's just say North America, to be more specific, Canada. I can fly wherever I want. And yeah, and then for you, okay, so for my private pilot though, I cannot get paid. I can't get paid.
No, that's right.
But on your side of things,
Yeah, so a couple years ago, I decided to get my commercial license for helicopters. It's been a dream of mine when I was a young kid. I had like a family member that had like an old picture of him like with a bomber jacket and a thick brown mustache. And one of my first dreams as a kid was like, hey, I want to be a helicopter pilot one day with a thick brown mustache.
yeah.
Then I grew up and I had other life expectation or like life dreams that I went pretty close, and a lot of it I've achieved. But just after peak COVID, I was kind of like in the lull. I was kind of like going in a circle with the Navy and kind of wanted to go back to something else, and I decided to go to my roots and apply to do my aviation, get my license. I always thought it was a bit far-fetched and like not accessible to me, but it turns out, hey, you just get a student loan and it works.
You just borrow money and anything works.
Yeah, no, exactly. I just never thought of borrowing money for school.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just, in Quebec, most public schools is free. I didn't really go to university after high school, like college, so I decided to do a collegiate course for my license. So yeah, I spent a year, built up my hours to about like 115 hours. A bunch of them are at night. All of it is VFR, so visual flight reference. So it's like you cannot really fly above the clouds at that point. Still pretty good for helicopters because most of the times you pretty 3,000 to 4,000 feet at most, depending on the height of the ground under you. And most of it is like in the bush, where you just fly low towards near the trees and everything, and you carry gear or you carry firefighters or whatever it has.
For those who don't know, because when you hear the term plane or helicopter, it's kind of generic. What can you fly? Like for someone who doesn't really, if you're explaining this to someone who has no idea about the helicopter, what can you tell them to kind of give them some information? I'm not looking for any specs. I'm just looking like, is it a big helicopter, small helicopter?
All right. Well, most schools in North America use the Robinson's machines. So
that's the training helicopter.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So the R-22, which is a 2-seater aircraft with about the same kind of engines as the most Cessnas, Lycoming with 4-piston, and they're very light. So you gotta stay kind of lean because if you're above like 185, 190 pounds, you're not gonna have a lot of gas in that machine to be able to lift off. Because if you're too heavy, the machine won't go up. So most of the training I did was about 70 hours on that tiny machine, and then I went up to the R44, which is a 4-seater.
So you kind of graduate to that once you pass.
Yeah, but that was a choice because you could do your whole license with just a 22, but you don't really get to experience that much of a different machine, a different power, and stuff. Or there's another. Well, now the school I went to was Illicraft in Saint Hubert in Quebec, and now they have like a R66, which is like an R44, so a 4-seat. Well, actually a 5-seater, with a turbine instead of just a piston engine. So more power. more range. I haven't touched that machine yet, but maybe one day we'll see. So yeah, I'm qualified on the R22 or the R44. Did a little bit of sling during that course as well. So slinging is when you have a cargo net or a cargo hook under your helicopter, and it has a big sling, a metal long line that could be 50 feet, 100 feet, sometimes 200, and you attach a load to it, and then you take off and you carry the load along. So that was part of my training as well, and it was super interesting. It's tough.
I mean, it looks difficult.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting because helicopter compared to planes, planes want to fly. Planes are built to be aerodynamically like safe to fly, and they want to go up and
it's a
stay
lot
up
safer
there.
than most people think.
Yeah, it is super safe.
A plane.
But a helicopter, it's kind of made to beat gravity into submission.
It's a vibrating, defying gravity.
Yeah, exactly.
machine.
There's it's all like a counter system that counters another principle that makes it that it flies. So for every movement on the cyclic, which is the controls that goes forward, rear, left, and right, and bank when you're at speed. For every little input that you will do, there will be a movement of the mast that will make it so that you actually need to adjust your power with your collective. So your collective raises and lowers the pitch lengths of your blades, and it changes the angle of attack that allows your aircraft to either lift off or go down. And then on it you have a throttle which adjusts the RPMs or the rate of the motor for the power. And then you have the pedals, which is an anti-torque pedals that for every input that you do, you'll have to counter it a little bit for the in French is le lacet, which in English was the
yaw.
The yaw, exactly. So yeah, it's actually pretty tough to fly at first, but eventually it's like riding a bike after 15.
It's almost like a video game with time. You kind of just.
I don't know about
that. But you're in a simulator instead.
Actually, I haven't done simulator until I was maybe 50, 60 hours.
How realistic was the simulator in comparison to the actual flying? I mean, obviously nothing will ever compare to real flight.
What's good for it is that you can practice just looking at your instruments without looking outdoors, so you can practice more of the IFR parts of the training, which would be instruments rating. So you need a little bit of exactly, so like radio navigation with different frequencies. But I'm not qualified on that yet. One day I will be. The simulator is mainly used when it's super rainy outside, very windy or something, and you just gotta spend some time in some cockpit. But at least it was all hands on, and it was super interesting.
So the helicopter you're flying it's a relatively small bird. So how many people could you bring if technically someone wanted to go with you?
So the R22 just one person.
So 2 people total.
Two people total, and the R44 I could bring three people along.
And you can't be obese.
There's a weight limitation in the pilot's handbook.
Okay. So as long as you're
So on the seat you can only put I think, if I remember correctly, I just gotta look it up, but I think it was between 250 pounds to 300 pounds limitation on the seat.
Yeah.
And inside the seat there's a little bit of a cargo hold. It's limited at 50 pounds. So it's about 300 pound total on one seat.
You say 50 pounds?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same on the Cessna.
But here's the thing, if you're, let's say I'm about 180, 175 pounds right now, and I'm sitting up forward on the right side of my aircraft, and I have a passenger that's sitting behind me, and he's 200 pounds. Well, my machine will literally be completely tilted to the right.
Yeah.
And I might have a hard time going all the way left.
So
I might want to get that person to sit on the opposite, to either next to me or behind me on the left as well. So it compensates
just
a
for
little bit more.
physics alone, yeah.
Exactly.
Interesting. That's crazy. It's I don't fix those. I fix helicopters in general, but it's kind of I could never fly one. I mean, I know what the controls do, but if I were to just get in it and move, the thing would crash.
It's awesome. It's so fun.
Okay, cool. So you have your commercials now. So I guess because my license does not give me my commercials, in order for me to get my commercials, which allows you to get paid and to work for a company, I have so many extra ratings I have to do. Well, that's incorrect. I have other ratings I have to add on and then get up to 200 hours, where I think yours is 100. No, yours is 200 hours as well.
No, mine I could get it right away. So that's the difference with helicopters and planes. Planes, you gotta do your PPL, build up your hours to up to like 150 or 200, and then you can do like your IFR, or then you can do your commercial after like 200 or something like that. I'm not too sure. That's the last information I have. It might be updated like tomorrow. I don't know.
You can challenge your written exam for your commercials at 150 hours, but you cannot get your commercials until you have 200 hours plus your prerequisites.
Yeah.
But for someone like you who's done,
because a lot of the plane flying will be big cross-country flights. A lot of it will be IFR, which will be like at high altitudes and above clouds most likely, and in somewhat inclement weather you can do as well. As like most of the jobs in the helo industry, for the most part in North America, you're flying low above the forest and everything. You're doing a lot of bush work, so the VFR is easy to get. So actually in Quebec, with like 60, 65 hours, you could actually get your commercial.
That's crazy.
Me, I got it after like 110 because it was part of a program and a package and all.
Yeah, because you did you're not doing what I do.
No.
Because what?
It was full time for a year.
Yeah. So you were driving to school every day, 5 days a week, or how was your?
Yeah, 5 days a week. And then once I was done with the theory and everything, because we had air laws, meteorology. Flight theory and everything, like a bunch of different kind of segment of the training.
Yeah.
Once that was all done and I did all my exams, because I got in French is an Aviation, which was like a collegiate.
It's a degree.
A degree pretty much.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of classes that we had to take for the Minister of Education to give a degree pretty much at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a little bit of side classes hey, I'm French, so everything I've done was in French. But there was part of it that was an English course for aviation, right? My English is pretty good, but I had coworkers at school that were French from France and they didn't know English. So there was those extra kind of class. I had a survival class where we got lost in the woods and we had a scenario hey, we crashed with a helo, how do you figure it out?
Mm-hmm.
We spent a couple days there sleeping at the good La Belle Étoile, looking at the starry sky.
That must have been
stuff
fun.
Like that. It was fun.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean,
your commercials.
Once I was done with the theory and everything, then it was just building up the hours, waiting for good weather, and planning flights and doing cross country or a lot of emergencies training.
It's very interesting to see because when you get into the pilot world, there's different methods of going about getting a license, and what you did is completely the opposite of what I'm doing. You actually paid. I think was it upfront? Do you pay that upfront anyway? Or is it
it's kind of like you open a line of credit and then you drop money in, and then they get the money.
Yeah. So you actually went to a school for.
But I did have a big invoice where it's you have the big number and you're hey, this is it. Eventually you'll be spending that much.
Oh yeah. So you actually are going to a school 5 days a week. You're studying, I'm assuming on the weekends. You're a part-time job. You're figuring your stuff out, and you're working towards this degree, which ultimately is your license, which means you can get paid because you did your commercials. Whereas someone like me, who's doing my PPL, everything is because I didn't go down your route of doing things, and you can't even do that with me. In order for me to go down the route you did with going to school, I would have to be going for an airline.
Okay.
Or I would have to be doing it for a commercial license, and then it would be a condensed program. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's 2 to 3 years to do with the airlines, but you start from scratch.
Crazy.
And it's you're on with your program, you're on the grind 24/7. It's ridiculous. I don't know how I would never be able to do that.
I was still in the Navy, but as a reservist, I was working part time, and even then I was a lot of work, and I had a bit of a struggle because when I was working part time with the Navy, I still had a lot of responsibility within my unit, and it was tough to deal with that at the same time of being full time at school. Yeah, it was tough to be at school full time and actually still have my reservist Navy job because I still had a lot of responsibility, and I spent a bit of too much time when I was in school just thinking about work. So my focus wasn't completely on school, but every time I was flying, it was just everything was, I'm in the machine. Everything's about flying. That was awesome.
It's nice. Yeah. It's different how you went down your route because back in at that time, I did not know you could become a pilot with just doing flight school on the side. I always thought you had to do some type of university, or you had to go to college, you had to get a full degree, and then you could apply to do pilot stuff, and it was just a whole different world that I wasn't aware of. So when I was in Greece, and I remember this exactly because there was this officer, I remember coming out of the hangar doors, and that's when we were on our ramp period, and there was this officer, lieutenant, and somehow because I had just looked up online the PPL thing, I just found out something about Cessnas, and I was looking it up. Come to find out, word of mouth, that there was someone who was a pilot on the ship, who was one of the pilots, but he had done his thing civvy-side. So that's when I found out. It was 2018 when I had found out, and then the dream has been somewhat alive since. And it's funny too because I remember after I had left the Navy and I had moved out here, when I was with my ex at the time, I had bought us like a discovery flight to just check it out.
Nice.
And this was before I was in the Air Force. This was when I was a complete civilian, and I had no idea I had literally no idea about nothing. So anyways, we go on this discovery flight, and I remember getting into the Cessna and realizing how complicated everything looked. Like, now, we
It's
see
not complicated at
no,
all
it's
when
not.
you think about
but
it.
when you don't know anything,
I know.
and you get into a cockpit, and you see 15 gauges,
Oh, yeah.
and all the circuit breakers, and you see all these things
the
going
circuit
on.
breakers are like seem like
You know
a
what's
lot.
actually, it's funny because in the Cessna there's only like 7 or 8 of them. But when you're someone who doesn't know understand anything in the cockpit, and you show up, you're used to like an RPM, and your
Maybe a temperature gauge on your car. Maybe.
yeah,
look
well,
at
just
it.
so the temperature of your engine, and then it shows you your speed and then your RPM. But other than that, like you don't go into your car and there's like a whole like display of gauges and whatever. So I remember just being super intimidated when I got into the Cessna, and it kind of turned me off for a little bit because when I went home, I kept saying to my ex at the time, I was like, that is so cool, I definitely want to do my license. And then with days forward,
Imagine what happened.
It just faded.
You went on a discovery flight, and it threw you off for a minute. For me, I was talking to a friend, and he was doing his private license for Cessnas as well, and he said that like he got like a loan from a bank. I was like, oh my god, I never thought about borrowing money to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked up the schools, and then I looked up the banks, and I made it happen.
yeah, because you didn't get a student loan.
Here's the thing. No, well, it was like a
Technically,
line
you
of
could.
credit,
Technically,
student
yeah.
line of credit,
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like that.
Yeah.
Thing is, it was about 80K at that time to get like the license with the degree,
Mm-hmm.
or I could like do it for like 56 or 60,000 for just the license. But I wanted the degree just, to get like a bigger background.
Yeah.
I just went all in. I applied, and I started like in March that year in 2021, and without one discovery flight.
That's crazy.
And you know what the big thing was? Is like you spend at least the first month to a month and a half learning theory and learning about flying,
Yeah.
but you don't fly until like a month and a half after you started the school.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm dropping 80K without a final flight. I don't even know if I will like it,
That's
which
crazy.
I know I would have.
Yeah.
But like I'm not doing that because
Yeah.
it's just like a thing on my mind. Like, oh, just dropping 80K right there. No, I knew it was it. And my first flight was with an awesome instructor that I had. I wish him all his best. First flight was super sweet. We step in the R-22. He shows me how to do a walk around, and then like how to do a pre-flight and all of that, or a pre-flight and then a walk around. Fuel the helicopter, put just enough gas because we're both like about 180 pounds at that point, so we gotta be safe. Put like maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours like worth of gas in the machine,
Mm-hmm.
and we take off. And I'm in Saint-Hubert in Quebec, and I'm taking off, and I'm heading towards the St. Lawrence. At that point, I'm not flying. He's just like showing me and everything
Mm-hmm.
with the headset, talking to the headset. We're going along the St. Lawrence. We're going north, so leaving Montreal, heading kind of towards Trois-Rivières, but without ever making it there. And then we're just like flying above some fields, and then he starts showing me some procedures and everything. And then at some point, like I'm all excited, and it gives me the control. I go left, go left and right. I bank a little bit of forward, and then reverse. Then he gives me like a collective, so up and down a tiny bit, and then like a little bit of the pedals, so I get a feel of everything. That's when I say, I'm gonna show you an auto rotation. I'm like, oh my god, an auto rotation, what is this?
Yeah.
I hear like people die from it, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool. Like, he just drops the collective down, so no power pretty much. Lift it up a tiny little bit just so the alarm goes off. And then drops the speed to about, I think at that point it was like about 60 knots. And then we're just gliding. We're gliding down. So what happens during an auto rotation is when you have power going to the collective with the throttle, the engine sends powers to the gear system, and it goes to the mast. So the rotor turns pretty much. But there's a freewheeling unit. So if you were to drop the power, or if your machine the engine was to die, well, this thing is still gonna keep turning.
The gravity is still gonna help it turn.
Exactly, and it's just gonna keep turning.
Yeah.
But as you're going down instead of up at that point, the air that flows through the mast will make it flow even more, kind of like an éolienne, like a windmill. It just
makes it go up. It makes it speed up quicker the faster you go down.
Exactly. So what's cool is that at that point you just reduce your speed, so you have actually like a better angle to go through the wind or through the air, and you can actually control the machine. You can do maneuvers. You can go a full 360. You can do 180. You can do what you want. And then once you get close to the ground, about 40 feet, that's when you start flaring by bringing your cyclic back towards you to slow down the machine, bring it back straight, so it's just above ground. And at that point, you can do two things. You can either have it slide, which in a real situation would have it slide, but there's machines that have enough energy stored in the mass at that point that you could literally just stop it in place, land, take off again with just the power, the energy that's stored in the mass since it's spinning so fast. So it's pretty cool. So the first time he does it, it amazed me because you drop fast, so your heart goes up, and everything. But
it feels
super safe. So compared to a plane where you're taking off and you need a landing strip, you need a road or somewhere to land. With a helicopter, you don't need a lot of space to be able to land a helicopter, even if your engine's dead. It's super cool.
That's super true. That's obviously what's cool about a helicopter versus a plane is a helicopter you can land where you want. As in my case, I better hope there's somewhere if something goes wrong with my aircraft.
Or you look at the trees and you're like, which one is the softest tree I can hit?
I have distance. Obviously depending on your altitude, I can glide forever. I got to hit ground at some point, but I hope that at some point there's either a runway, which is probably not going to happen if your engine goes on. If your engine goes on you're probably far from the airport. But you're most likely going to be over maybe water, over desert, over fields, over trees. So anyways, if my situation comes to an end, at least I have I can glide and hopefully land safely.
Hopefully you have the altitude to glide a long time.
Helicopter, well, you're beelining to the ground.
It's fine though. Super fine.
So with what you did, you went to school 5 days a week, you worked the weekends, you worked your part-time.
And actually I would fly on weekends sometimes too, yeah.
So you're literally in school doing this for a year. Whereas in my case, everything is still on your own, that program, but for me, I've been doing this for almost 2 years now. That's how long it's taken for many, many reasons. But in my situation, when doing a private pilot's license, you do your ground school at the beginning, and then you can kind of fly whenever you feel, whenever it works for you. Here in Victoria, we're kind of blessed with very good summers, but the winters suck. It's rain. Well, it's relative. I don't mind it.
It's too windy, but it's definitely gray and grim and windy.
But everything is on your own time. So you want to study, you want to fly once a week, you want to study once a week, until everything is completely on you, and then you just pay as you go. Whereas in your case, you have a ton of money that goes right for this 1 year program. It's super condensed. You're in the books the whole time. You're flying the whole time. You're building up towards this one thing. And it is kind of cool to see the different options.
There's a lot, in Quebec actually, and I didn't learn about that school until I started my first one. But there's a public school in Rimouski, it's Saguenay. I think it's called... No, it's out of my mind at this point. But there's a school where it's a 3-year program. It's free, it's a public school. And you learn everything, and you start on Cessnas, and then you can go into Hilo. So right away, a lot of people hire from that school because you got a commercial license at the end of it. You got your planes, and you got your Hilos. You almost got IFR, I think, with it as well. So you got everything you need to be starting in the business afterwards. Doesn't cost a thing.
So moving forward, So since you've been here, I mean, we've lived together for a year and a half now, give or take. I am still not done my PPL. I'm fairly close in relativity. You have your commercials for your helicopter license. You can't really fly here. You can only fly on the mainland, from my understanding.
That's the thing. Like here, what's kind of tough is you need to most likely need to be working for one of the companies to be able to like rent one of the helos or just like get trusted because you know it's still a worky machine. Doesn't matter the size. You need to do flight tests with an instructor as well. Like even if you're licensed and everything, you need to get checkout rides, and it's expensive. So for sure, like in the past year, my money wasn't focused like on flying more. I think like in the past year I've only flown once, so I do really want to get back in the air as often as I can, but it is a big chunk of money.
Well, that leads me into the next thing is obviously we're coming up towards Christmas. Well, that's maybe not the best way to put it. We're coming in towards the fourth quarter of the year here. Fall's now hitting. It's getting colder. The weather is slowly changing. I'm still doing my PPL. I should have it before year's end, but I will 100% have mine before the start of the new year, I guess, before we can actually start flying, or at least in the spring. But next year will be a different animal than the last 2 years, because next year we'll be flying all the time.
Oh yeah.
And one thing that's obviously cool with Cessnas, or at least flying small planes, they're very accessible. There's many of them. And living here on the West Coast, at least on the island, or if you're even close to the Vancouver area, there's airports or aerodromes all over the place that allow you to rent the planes. So coming up in the new year, after finishing this license, we'll be flying a ton. And that will open up a whole new can of worms moving forward. So it's like, obviously with everything that's gone on this year, in the past years, there's been a lot of partying, a lot of adventures, a lot of hikes, a lot of doing things, but one of the main reasons why we kind of moved in together was for the aviation, and we're so close to doing it.
Yeah.
So one thing that I'm very, very excited for is next year, once I have this license, it'll allow us to fly and even use all your skills that you have, even though it's not a helicopter. Your nav skills are there.
Yeah, because that's the thing. I'm not rated for planes. I don't have my plane license. I'm still interested into doing it. It's not my main focus right now. But as a commercial pilot, I can still help with the nav. I can still do the comms if you need.
That's exactly.
And honestly, once you're qualified, I can help out on the machine.
100%.
Yeah.
But the big thing is that we both, even though you're you're not qualified on the aircraft, you're still going to be very, very useful. And I will need your help as well, especially when we're doing flights to the States, flights to either arm wrestling tournaments, or flights to meeting up with your friends on the mainland. And that's just a whole different world. And I feel like once we start flying, and I did mention this, but you can rent helicopters some places on the mainland.
Yeah, it should be a bit easier, but
so there will be a point in time.
There's research that needs to be done for that. Yeah.
There will be a point in time, especially in the new year, for those who watch my YouTube channel, you will see a video at some point of us flying to go flying. Us flying to the mainland to rent a helicopter to go flying.
Hell, we'll rent a boat if we need to get.
Yeah, if I have to get a boat, a plane, helicopter, we're gonna do it.
Let's get a float plane that we land, so we like ride it as a boat, make it to a place so we can rent a helo.
We can do that. We just get it. Yeah, that could work technically. But yeah, that will be a whole different world, and that's coming pretty soon. The fact that we'll be able to travel, just having different life experiences from inside an aircraft to 30 minutes away to 10 hours away. Like, we don't know what the future holds. We just know we're going to be flying. And that's what's exciting. When I look, one of the biggest reasons for doing the pilot's license, at least in my regard, is just freedom.
Yeah.
The freedom of when you look up in the sky and you just see this small little thing that's moving, and there's someone in there.
Every time I see an aircraft, I just stare at it and I try to guess which one it is, and usually I'm right. When it comes to helo, I don't know shit about planes.
It's funny because I'm kind of the opposite, where it's like the only helicopter I know what it looks like is if it's a Cyclone or it's not.
Or a Sea King maybe, yeah. But now,
just because I literally work on them
to see a Sea King right now.
I can spot a Sea King. I can spot like some type of a helicopter, a Griffin, yes, Chinook, obviously, and a Cyclone. But yeah, next year is going to be a big year. We have flying coming and a lot of it. I'm stoked.
I'm super stoked too.
The adventures that'll bring, the people we'll meet, I mean, the places we're going to go. I'm stoked. It's going to be good. Big things coming for that.
I just thought about it. It's kind of funny because in a helicopter, most of them, usually when you're doing normal flights, your pilot in command sits on the right side. So the commander or the pilot itself sits on the right, and the co-pilot sits on the left. As like in a plane, the pilot in command sits on the left, and the co-pilot on the right. So hell, I'll be in a plane and I'll be comfy because it's gonna be my right seat anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that doesn't change.
Nope. Yeah, good things coming, man. I'm excited. And then we'll be doing podcasts in the future after
Why not?
we release, like especially next year when we document some of these flights, of just the place we'll go. We'll be able to talk about it. It'll be good. It'll be life-changing stuff. And I mean, we're so close. Well, I'm so close. You're there. You're just like you're the qualified guy, just like waiting. Come on, finish your stuff.
All right, but I said I'm a qualified guy, but I'm not the guy flying, so that has to come soon. But like I said, I'm still on the Navy contract, so it's a bit tougher to find a time or invest my money in there right now. Mm-hmm. But it's still in my interest. It's something in the next 2 to 3 years I want to reinvest myself way more into aviation, and as much as it is with you and like helping out, I guess I'll be in the air.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's it, man. I mean, I'll be getting my license. I'm gonna say the new year, but realistically, it should be before the holidays this year. However, next year, and that's not including the float license that's coming in the spring as well.
Yeah.
So flying is on our list to do in the new year, and I think our life will be surrounded by aviation, and that'll be stories to tell in the future, memories to come, and yeah, I'm just really excited. It should
awesome.
Be good times coming. So yeah, I don't know. I guess we can end the pod here.
Sounds good.
Do you have anything, if anyone has made it this far except for our mom?
Mama.
Do you have anything you want to link up? Do you have anything social media wise?
Sure. I don't.
Tell your mom to sub.
Yeah, my mom. Go on Instagram.
This is for the mom.
I guess my Instagram is Alex_L_Murphy. LMURPHY.
I'll drop it in the link down below.
Sounds
the
good.
description.
Do it. That's fine. Maybe eventually I'll have a commercial or a business link that I can send, like a link. I do have a LinkedIn, but I need to update it.
Once you're working for.
Hey, if you guys want to have me as your pilot.
Yeah, if there's anyone out there looking for a pilot, looking for a commercial pilot helicopter, this guy's chilling.
Yeah, I'm chilling.
For the moms watching, there's no one else. But anyways, that was it. Sick.
Sweet.
Good pod, and we'll do it again in the future.
Awesome.
You guys know the drill. No, that would have been my intro.
Let's go.
Anyways, if you guys like this, I'll say like I do on my YouTube channel because I have no idea what to say at the end. But if you guys like this type of content, please like the podcast or the video. Consider subscribing as well. I will catch you guys in the next one. Till then, peace.
Peace.
Sick.
Sick.